Well, morning. Well, the way it looks like Trump, unless agreed with Jeremy Powell after calling him a number of names, intimidating him like too slow, stupid. All actually those are all quotes. In simple terms, he used to call him names that were kind of vague. Well, making him to feel like he's a low key one on the other. You should also try to understand that such names were not really good names to Jeremy Powell. But the question is, if Trump right now is admitting that we need to increase rates or raise rates one or the other, is it because he's seeing something bigger than we don't see? In simple terms, the bigger question should be like, why right now, and why is Trump accepting to be keeping either rates where they are, or because he never liked Jeremy in the first place? Maybe he likes him more than he likes Kevin Walsh more than he liked Jeremy Paul. But I believe there's a bigger picture on that. Otherwise, to understand what's taking place, let's break it down. In simple terms, before you try to understand what's taking place, we should try to understand that there have been a number of presidents because history repeats itself. In the first place, President Nixon in 1971 to 1972.
The 1970s was a decade of economic turmoil, with seeds sown in the highest office of the land. President Richard Nixon was obsessed with ensuring a strong economy for his upcoming 1972 re-election bid. He pressured Fed Chairman Arthur Burns to keep interest rates artificially low to stimulate immediate growth. Relentless pressure delivered through late-night phone calls left the Fed chairman feeling deeply cornered. The Federal Reserve eventually succumbed, slashing rates and flooding the market with easy credit. Initially, it worked. The economy roared back to life with bustling shopping malls and rising employment. Nixon basked in a 1972 landslide victory, seemingly vindicated by the soaring economic numbers. But the artificial boom soon turned into a nightmare as prices began to soar nationwide. Double-digit inflation and gas lines became reality, a consequence of prioritizing short-term political gain. Burns sat at his desk, overwhelmed by distressing reports and a crisis he could no longer ignore. The Fed building stood as a silent witness to a failed experiment in political control over banking. This era remains a stark, cautionary tale about the heavy price of political interference in monetary policy.
Well, he had the elections in 1972, and he asked the Fed chair by then, he was by the names of Arthur Burns. In simple terms, Arthur Burns had to lower interest rates because you must understand how politics play. This is an economic channel. We don't. It doesn't matter either you're Democrat or Republicans or Independent. We are here to understand how money or how money moves. In simple terms, he tried his level best to make interest rates. Well, the chair by then, Arthur Burns, what he did, he lowered the interest rates in simple terms and making sure that the interest rates were falling low in simple terms, making the economy. When I say lowering interest rates, that means there was almost free money in simple terms, money without interest in simple terms. However, after 4 years in 1974, we saw inflation raising almost 12%. That's when things started running so bizarre. Actually, inflation was unbearable. I believe it's among the highest levels of inflation ever recorded in the US economy. You should also try to understand that when such levels of inflation were seen, well, Arthur Burns had to be kicked out in several times. Maybe he had to resign. I don't remember whether history. But what all I remember was that he was forced. It was forced to see the new leader known as Paul. There was I'm forgetting the name, Paul. He came up and raised interest rates to almost 20%. That's way high. Imagine your mortgage rate just raising up by 20% with just one night. That's way high just to fight inflation. To understand what's taking place as of today, we should try to understand what's the inflation today. Well, the annual inflation for today is almost at 4.2%. That's really excessively high in simple terms. If you don't understand how big that is, let me break it to you in simple terms. Okay, by April had inflation that was around 3.8%, still high. Today, the Fed itself is considering stopping their goal of the 2% because they feel like that goal is never going to be achievable. Well, they have their reasons for that. We should also try to understand that kind of inflation is the goal that they're having to attain the 2%. You cannot attain into the system that's really failing in simple terms. Those systems is fueled on cheap money or free money printing in simple terms. We are trying to understand that such a coalition means one or two things in simple terms. It means that the US government cannot exist without cheap money cannot exist without. And what's taking place is really uh, bias to the US economy or to the US government. You should try to understand that US is facing a debt of 40 trillion US dollars. And that's not the worst part. Just service interest, because we all know that the US may not be able to pay off all these debt just at once. But in simple terms, it has also to service that interest every year. And that interest is almost a trillion US dollars today. Actually, above a trillion, just a bit. I think it's a 1.1 trillion just service. That's more than they spend on the army. That's more money. You should also try to understand that just 2 months back, the 10-year yield was almost at 5%. It went above 5%. And as of today, it's around 4.5%. Well, we could say that's after the Genius Act that Trump signed up for the crypto companies, like let's say USD Tether, and that's a video for another day, because I feel like USD Tether is also cooked while buying US treasuries. Yeah, they are making a lot of money, but in the wrong run, it doesn't feel like a self business. You should try to understand that after Trump signing up the Genius Act, that's after seeing companies, foreign entities that used to hold US treasuries, let's say China, Japan, and many other foreign countries that have been ruling their alliance with the US treasury in simple terms. They have been decreasing the amount of treasury they have been holding in simple terms. They also show that in simple terms that there's lack of trust in the US dollars. And that kind of lack of trust can only be attained by raising interest rates in simple terms. Because raising interest rates means one or two things. It means that the US dollar will be stronger and will be more attracting more buyers in simple terms. That means it's a better asset to be seen as something that has been raising. That's why we've been seeing Bitcoin, gold. They have been crushing as much as they can, because after Kevin Wash coming to office, well, he did something that was crazy too, because all the chairs in the office have been able, being what we call a dot, giving what's known as a dot in simple terms. Well, that's a reflection where they are likely to be either raising interest rates or lowering interest rates in simple terms. They have been likely to be showing the path where they're likely to be taking interest rates in the next place. However, Kevin Wash came with a policy that was kind of funny in simple terms, also kind of bizarre. Just for you to understand that he never raised interest rates and he never lowered interest rates. Just his 1 week back, when he addressed the nation in simple terms. We should try to understand that. However, he concluded by saying we are likely to see an increase in interest rates. We don't know when, but that sparked up making gold to be crashing in simple terms. However, whenever you see gold crashing, silver crashing, Bitcoin crashing, just know the dollar is going to be rising. The story is going to be on the opposite side of the road. But the biggest question should be like, where does this lead us to in simple terms? Because history remains the same in simple terms. Because if you look at all the U.S. presidents that have been in office, President Nixon, Harry S. Truman, President Harry S. Truman, in simple terms, sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. All these presidents once tried to lower interest rates in times that were not really right in simple terms, because all they wanted to see was cheap money. Because we have to understand that politicians like to spend. Politicians like to see when people support them, when they're happy with whatever, but they don't mind about the actual economy. Today we are living on what I refer as to an effect economy in simple terms. It's not like a logical economy. It's a man-made, like a too plasticky kind of economy in one or the other. Because if you have free money, if you can bail out companies just out of thin air and be like, yeah, we're bailing him up, he can still work. We are not going to have the real actual economy. In simple terms, yes, there's fear for deflation in simple terms, but the way it's raising up, we are seeing the Fed in a position where we're not sure either lowering or raising interest rates will make any change. Right now, the job employment or unemployment is kind of low in simple terms. But the question is, if there is interest rates and unemployment raises, what's the Fed likely left with to do? Because it's going to be facing high inflation and high unemployment. Because you cannot save the two at once. You cannot save inflation. You cannot fight inflation and fight unemployment at the same time. because you must either lose one of the two in simple terms. That means one way or the other. Right now, the Fed has a right to increase rates in simple terms to fight inflation as long as unemployment stays low. But imagine a situation where unemployment, which I hope, I'm not hoping, but which is likely according to the data, that's how it looks in like how it looks in simple terms. Because last month we had almost 192k jobs attained. Uh, the month before, and this month had around 50k jobs attained, which feels like a crazy lower number. They're not like promising numbers. Lastly, we have what was known as the AI bubble. The AI bubble that's just likely to be raising any minute, any second from now. Sorry, I'm straighting and it's kind of hot weather this side. But we try to understand that the kind of weather we are looking at in simple terms, the kind of HT behavior we are looking at, the US is looking at like Trump love to see what they call a productive US economy in simple terms. Instead of seeing it maybe aligning itself with the US government, everything that has been depending on the US spending in simple terms. Actually, the biggest GDP growth from the US government or from the US as a country, well, depends on the US spending, your US government spending. However, with hopes of AI to grow and become productive, so that's trying to outgrow the US debt in simple terms. That feels like a dream because the way how AI has been seen, how and the way we see the competitors like Chinese AI that's almost free at the same time, like DeepSeek. There's pressure that uh, for productivity to grow, you can't force it. In simple terms, you must have one cheap labor. You must have attainable sources of raw materials, which is hard for the US economy right now because the only man with rare earth materials is China. All this, if you add it all together, it indicates one or two things. Well, we would say that it's a cooked economy in simple terms. It's an economy where you could indicate it as something that is a road of no return. Regardless, either the lower interest rates or raise interest rates, we are going to reach a point when those points don't matter. How long are the US government is still spending the way they're spending, funding the wars, going left and right and center, instead of focusing on the macro economy or the common economy in simple terms, finding ways of degrading the government in simple terms, regulating their spending. There's no way you're gonna tell me that they're gonna find a way of paying off the debt because right now they're fighting interest rates because they are paying over $1 trillion US every year, which is more than they spend on the armor in simple terms. However, I saw that the budget being revised again once again by the president because he wanted more armament due to the ongoing wars in the maybe in the Middle East. But regardless, what I'm trying to indicate at the end of this video is that we are going to reach a point where lowering interest rates or raising interest rates doesn't make sense because the growing debt is going high. That's the interest being the service on interest is something that's really killing the US government in simple terms. It's making the bond market to go crazy. It's making everything to go crazy. The borrowing cost of the US government, don't be surprised when they go to almost 10%. Right now they are 4.5%, let's say the 10-year US treasuries. Don't be surprised when you see it going above 10%. Don't be surprised when you see it above. That's maybe within the next 2-3 years, depending if the US government doesn't change the way it behaves on its spending. Otherwise, thank you for watching. See you in the next one. We pray for a better economy. We pray for better results. But the way how it looks and how politicians play, it seems like a road of no return. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.